Wait, remember Detentionaire? It was a school student mystery thriller show about a student who gets framed for a school prank and given detention for the whole year. But in his time in detention, some odd things start to get uncovered. Detentionaire was one of those shows I had kept on my back burner for quite some time, but the amount of push to give it a watch made me finally sit down and give it a try, and wow, there is a lot more here than I thought, and heck, I love a good mystery. Today, I want to take a bit of a dive into Detentionaire to see what the show was all about, why there is so much here that surprised me, and of course, what happened to it. Detentionaire is a show that can get by you without you even knowing, because as far as I can tell, this show never really existed in a way where I would have known about it in the States. This was another Canadian-made show that primarily aired there, with only a few other places around the world getting syndication. The US did get the show, but we got it through Cartoon Network's digital platform Always On, from 2014 to 2015. So it was either viewing what they had on there, or an even more limited selection posted directly to Cartoon Network's website. Yeah, kind of easy to miss a cartoon if it's this hidden. Either way, I am glad that since then the show has been made more available online, and there have been many fans of the show telling others to check it out, and I am really glad I did. I really found myself getting into the series as it truly hooks you in with its unique premise and honestly pretty fascinating mysteries. I mean, come on, who didn't want their school to be hiding some massive secret that you and your friends get to sneak around and discover? No one? Just me? You're all lying, and I am disappointed in you. That's it. Fringe is canceled. Okay, that's a joke, I'm kidding, jeez. The base premise of the show here is that our main character Li Ping gets in trouble for a prank that he didn't commit. This then puts him in detention for the rest of the year. Of course, with him being innocent, he wants to solve the mystery of who framed him, and he does so by sneaking out of detention and getting to the bottom of what actually happened. But this makes things more complicated and mysterious because there is more than just a prank problem going on that Li finds himself in. The school is hiding more secrets than your average school, and your average school's secret is probably that the teacher's lounge is only a place where teachers go to meet up and talk badly about you in private. Let's dig into this a bit though. So for Lee here, it's the first day of 10th grade for him, and aside from gym class, he's pretty much a straight A student, getting heavy pressure from his family to be getting the highest grades he can. After getting dropped off at Enigma High, which just sounds like Enigma, to play into the whole mystery of everything we'll get into, we get to see how high school is portrayed in the show. It's dreary, there's different types of cliques littered throughout the halls, and Lee's best friend Cam is really all about the girls, putting major emphasis on his focus this year. Their other friend is Holger. Well, he's just Holger, he's just doing him. He's a fun character, I like him. Also, by the way, the show says clique like clique. It stems from French origins, which makes sense why Canadians would pronounce it that way. I am not Canadian, and I grew up with everyone, including myself, saying clique, so I am sorry if saying it that way pisses off any Canadian viewers. Just know I appreciate you and your cartoons. Anyway, when it comes to the awful moment that changes everything, Lee ends up having to really use the restroom, causing him to sneak out of this assembly, and during this moment, something mysterious is going on in one of the stalls, where an unknown character activates a prank that messes with the assembly, having the lights flicker, playing loud music, and releasing a bunch of stink bombs causing mass hysteria. I mean, everyone's throwing up, there's a Digimon around for some reason, and paint is flung everywhere. Okay, well, the lizard thing is just the mascot for the school. Still, it was trying to take out some of the students, it looks like, so I'm just saying. And as it all comes to an end, Lee comes back at the wrong moment, only to chuckle at the sight he's seeing as the principal immediately blames him for what happened, sentencing him to a full year of detention. And that's how it all begins. Everything else that comes next really starts to change things. Now, back at this moment where he is getting in trouble, it's no longer just a hunch that the principal goes on with no proof other than him not being there when it happened, as inside of Lee's backpack is everything that was involved in the prank, like blueprints and planning materials that kinda paints him guilty. This pins him as the enemy against basically the whole school as well, because they were all affected by the madness that went on. So I'd say this isn't a great first day of the school year. I also just want to say that for when the prank happened, I love that the animation style for the show show changed and it became very sketch looking in that moment. It's a cool detail that I appreciate in the efforts of making this moment feel more disorienting. To make matters worse and more embarrassing here, Lee's mom also works at the school as a math teacher, and in front of everyone, she yells at him, telling him that he is also grounded for the whole year, so double bummer. Initially, there is a mixed bag of who gives respect or who has an issue with Lee as the different cliques weigh in on how they feel about him as they pass him in the hall. His friends don't help because they see part of this as a vessel to bank on popularity, another aspect of the show we see that ends up involving all of the different cliques throughout the school. At the end of the school day, Lee finally heads to detention, which is located in this basement level of the school where he meets Biffy, another student in detention who believes that Lee didn't pull off the prank like everyone believes, and kind of starts giving Lee the rundown of detention here. We see that the teacher who is supposed to watch over them is barely awake or coherent, so that makes detention a lot less worrisome for what starts happening. At first, he knows he needs to get to this camera that was left in the gym that captured the whole event, as it may be a way to clear his name. But before he truly understands that he could sneak out of the classroom, he ends up trying to call his friends to ask them for help, but they don't answer the phone, they're too preoccupied. So this is the moment where we start getting the setup for what's gonna happen in the show for the most part. Lee, thanks to the help of Biffy, ends up coming up with a plan to sneak out of detention to go and get the footage from the camera, but also needing to know where the principal is always located so that he won't get caught, and that if he needs to get back to detention in time, he can without getting caught. I really love that this turns Biffy into this man in the chair that helps Lee plan everything out, setting time limits of how long Lee has on this mission and tracking him throughout the school. It's all really fun and it adds even more stakes to everything because Lee really can't be getting in even worse trouble. He needs to clear his name. Through this, it leads Lee on a chase of who's really behind this, balancing not getting caught by authority figures in the halls, working on proving his innocence, and sneaking his way back to detention before the end of it. And later on, when he's finally back at home, he starts trying to put the mystery all together. Starting off after the first day, getting a tiny bit of proof from the little recovered footage he got that someone who wears a ring definitely messed with his bag, pointing to the fact that he was indeed framed. But what's not a prank is that you can head over to Gamersupps by clicking the link in my description, and by using my code FRINGE, you can get 10% off any purchase you ever make for yourself. There's tons of great flavors, both new and old, and lots of great other things like their shaker cups, merch drops, and so much more. Use my code FRINGE every time you purchase anything from Gamersupps and you'll save 10% off your order. It helps support the channel and you save some money, so use my code FRINGE at checkout. I appreciate you. Honestly, the first episode is such a good example of how to start off a series that will have a running narrative throughout that you need to follow. There are so many questions that it sets up, but it gives you enough of a payoff in the form of how Lee is going to start figuring things out that you are now invested in his story to clear his name. The whole spy-esque thriller to this mystery series makes it extremely fun as well. We meet our initial cast of characters, we see such an interesting take on the setting, and we get so many different avenues of where the story could go, all laid out for us. The typical episode would be structured with a moment of something crazy happening later in the episode before bringing us back to the start of the day. We'll get some time at school, Lee gets to start looking into everything and having the help of his friends before we get to the detention part of the episode where everything becomes like a spy movie. It has this nice back and forth where we get the detective side of things while we then still get all the tense action. Things quickly keep building on top of that, and this turns from a small mystery of who framed Li Ping to what crazy secrets this school is hiding and what other implications it could have on not just him and the students there, but the world as a whole. Yeah, it catches you off guard in the best ways possible. Like, sure, from episode 1, you can easily feel that things are weird. The principal is half robotic, the vice principal is pretty suspicious, the school mascot is a lizard creature, and there are these weird cleanup crew guys taking care of all these messes. So when you start getting into these more interesting plots that involve robots, the supernatural, and more, the other stuff regarding the setting of high school becomes a lot less interesting. Unless it has to do with the mysteries being looked into, everything outside of it feels like it doesn't fit into the narrative in a way that you truly care about it. It's not that it's bad when we focus on moments like this, it's just that it's less interesting and I much rather start focusing on anything else that has been building up. Luckily, the show really starts taking a turn into the bigger mystery of it all after the first season, spending time focusing on Lee really discovering that there is more to this school than it just being a school. You go from Lee sneaking around trying to figure out who did this prank and framed him to learning about this wild conspiracy that places everyone at the school and, well, the world in general, directly into a multiple 100-year-old setup for everything to be connected. The show is really good at building this up as well, thanks to how it constantly has this connective tissue of clues and foreshadowing sprinkled throughout the series. Detentionaire is one of those shows that will be benefited by multiple viewings thanks to the creators putting a lot into what is here through smaller and sometimes larger details that you may not notice or see until you understand more about what's going on, leading you to realize that there was a methodically thought up plan for every bit of the story. I think that deserves a lot of recognition because it never feels like there isn't a purpose to what's been going on or what new information we find out. Detentionaire would run from September 2011 until January of 2015, delivering a mostly complete story, and I'll touch on that at the end, through 4 seasons totaling 53 episodes. Daniel Bryan Franklin and Charles Johnston created the series with their own experiences of school being the baseline for what their show would have a focus on. For Charles, he went to a boarding school in Singapore where he would have to sneak out at night if he wanted to go and actually have some fun, and for Daniel, he would always be getting into trouble at school and getting reprimanded for things for no real reason. Add-ons to this to then work it into the series were 1, showing that getting bad grades doesn't make you a bad person, and you shouldn't be pushed around for it, as well as showcasing a mix of cultures and characters. The show does this through a mix of so many characters with different backgrounds, and we see that through their personalities. What else it would do is flip stereotypes on their head, so you'd get these preconceived thoughts on different cliques that you'd see in the halls, but throughout the series you'd see characters that act differently than they would seem like they would come off. The metalheads are nice, the goth kids would have their parents sue over ruining their looks, popular kids would give someone the time of day. There was just always something different going on with the students and who they appeared as visually, and then who they came off as personally. Now, it's not 100% like that, there are some stereotypes that do play into the stereotypes, but in general, it's a unique way to introduce certain characters and keep everything pretty fresh and interesting. There is a really large supporting cast to the series, like Lee's friend group, Cam and Holger, and to see that expand as we meet Biffy, who exemplifies the dodging of the stereotype. He initially looks like he'll come off as a big bully type, and sure, he can use his big presence to be a bully if he needs to, but we quickly see that he's really smart, he has a thing for crocheting, and he's really good at helping out. There's Tina, a school news reporter who gets invested and helps out thanks to her wanting to uncover the truth of the secrets that the school has, plus we see right from the start that there may be some feelings between her and Lee, and there's someone like Jenny, who is a character in the series that gets a larger presence the longer it goes on, becoming a part of the main friend group and wanting to help out. Her feelings and reasonings for really doing so get tangled in through her liking Lee, and thus gaining a dislike or at least a sour attitude towards Tina. So there is a lot of typical teenage experience here within the series, but it didn't ruin the way it was telling the overall story, which was nice. Now, there is a lot of development from other characters in the show that also play a big role. I mean, heck, the weird lizard mascot is more than it seems. It's actually a creature known as the Tazzleworm, and it's extremely integral to the plot, and there's more to that character in general, but with how specifically built on mystery the show is, I will leave it at that and leave you to seek out the answers for yourself because of how worth your time this show is. You'll constantly have characters come around that don't seem important or as important as you think they would be, only for them to be included or usefully used in moments that change how you view the show's ability to build the world around it in a natural way that never feels like it's just throwing things in for the sake of having a new concept to play off of. It's legitimately impressive, and it makes talking about it without spoiling so many specific moments so much harder. I really don't want to spoil where the series ends up in later seasons, as why the series works so well is thanks to seeing everything unfold and how you get the answers to it all. It would be doing the series a massive disservice by not pushing you to go and watch it. This extra level of detail amps up the storytelling and world building to a level that I can't say I have seen much of in more younger audience aimed media. So while the show can be silly and try its hand at some humorous moments, the serious state it has when it comes to the story really makes it something special. Having everything planned out makes everything so much better. The fact that you can see something set up in the first season that won't be answered until the final season, and done so in a way that makes sense to everything that has come before without having to go in and adjust things to then make it make sense, is truly refreshing. There was a vision here with Detentionaire that was able to be mostly fully realized from start to finish. There are some really cool developments that come later on as the show progresses, and along with that, some really cool characters like the Serpent, who has probably the most interesting story and connection to everything, and honestly, there were a few mind-blowing moments with him that were pretty fun to see unfold. Visually, the show looks really nice and stylized, with the most impressive part to me being the design of the backgrounds. The details and how the school looks plays so much into the story being told and how it expands. The fluidity of the animation grows with the series as well, and at first I will say that it may take a bit of time to get used to the character movements, but they only get better and they really shine during some fun action scenes. I also appreciate the fact that since this is a Canadian cartoon, that it was able to get away with some more mature themes and some edgier jokes that you'd most likely see cut from the series if it came to the US in a more official capacity. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the first episode is a good example of what I just said because it's riddled with several instances of these slightly older themes. So right from the start, the series gives off that exact vibe that it continues to have throughout it. Thanks to this, it did feel that we are getting a more realistic high school portrayal of how these kids would talk to one another and how authority figures would talk to kids. It's a show that doesn't treat the viewer as stupid, it doesn't hold your hand, and it allows you to figure out the mysteries with Lee and everyone rather than you just being told the answers. You explore along with the characters, and the more you know, the better experience you could have on a rewatch to see how everything in detail was laid out for you to piece together all along. Now, there are some mixed feelings about the end of the show and what it means for the show in general, and yes, there is both a solid enough ending that answers a lot of questions and gives you some pretty crazy moments, but there is also a bit of a cliffhanger and a few lingering bits of unanswered things that make you want more. Sure, you could easily make a season 5 of this show. There is enough here to take where the stakes were and raise them to their highest potential, where the world is now in danger. And from everything I can find out about why we didn't get a season 5, comes down to one thing: the US. Hey Canada, I'm sorry. Apparently it's the poor viewership of the show in the US that killed it. Wait, Cartoon Network, are you saying that the show you acquired the rights to air didn't get enough viewership because it was all on your app that you gave little to no promotion for, so no one, including me, even knew about this show when you put it out? And on top of that, it looks like I was right. You heavily edited episodes and had them out of order for a show where having them in order is one of the most important things. Right, it's the viewer's fault for not tuning in, our bad. But somehow, because Cartoon Network didn't love the return on investment, it couldn't continue in Canada? Teletoon banked on doing more if it would do good in the US? I don't know how it all works, but what I do know is that it all sounds dumb from every angle. But either way, I still feel that what happened in the end still made it all worth it to get to that point. And sure, it would have benefited from having more seasons and seeing where the even larger plans were going, but as a viewer, I was still very satisfied with the conclusion. The creators had more planned out, as they had hoped it could get up to 8 seasons in total, having full-on storylines with the vibe of the show changing a bit in the 5th season, and eventually taking things from high school to college. A petition did go out for the show to bring it back and keep the story rolling forward with backing from the creators, but as of now, that's it for what's going on with Detentionaire. I'd fully support more of the show being made, but if that sadly never happens, don't let that be a deterrent from watching the great 4 seasons that already exist, because they are great and worth your investment into. Even if everything isn't fully paid off in the end, you'll leave the series happy with where it got to and staying curious for more thrilling adventures of where it could go beyond that. I do highly recommend it. I think there is so much good that the series offers for you to go ahead and give it a watch, but if you have seen it, tell me your thoughts on the series. What aspects did you like most about it, and would you like to see it continue on for a few more seasons? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like on this video and to subscribe for more videos coming soon, but until then, later.